Thank you everybody here and online for being here at the next Diction-for-Dollars event. We're continuing, what is this? Is this our third one? Is that right? I think this is our third Diction-for-Dollars event. Or is this the fourth one? I don't know. We've given away so many dollars, it's boggled my mind. But we have more dollars to give away, and we have, for the people at home who are looking, I don't know if you can zoom in on your screen, but there's all of these empty slots available at our open mic today. And we only have one person signed up so far, Susie F., who will be speaking in just a moment. So if you're in the Claremont area and watching at home, come on by. You get paid to speak or stand at the lectern. So without further ado, let's get some money into the hand of Susie F., who will be doing This Is Water.
Hi. Okay. So last time I was here, I read some poetry of mine, but I'm going to do something sort of different now. A few years back, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I first read this speech called This Is Water. And it's by David Foster Wallace. It's a really fantastic speech, and I really enjoyed it. And I haven't read it since first reading it, I think. So I thought it would be a good time to read it again. This speech was given at the graduation, the 2005 graduation, I think, from Kenyon College. Yes. Okay. So he starts out, "Greetings and congratulations to Kenyon's graduating class of 2005. There are these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, 'Morning, boys, how's the water?' And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, 'What the hell is water?' This is a standard requirement of U.S. commencement speeches, the deployment of a didactic little parable-ish stories. The story turns out to be one of the better, less bullshitty conventions of the genre, but if you're worried that I plan to present myself here as the wise older fish explaining what water is to you younger fish, please don't be. I'm not the wise old fish. The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are hardest to see and talk about. Stated as an English sentence, of course, this is just a banal platitude, but the fact is that in the day-to-day trenches of adult existence, banal platitudes have a life or death importance, or so I wish to suggest to you on this dry and lovely morning. Of course, the main requirement of speeches like this is that I'm supposed to talk about your liberal arts education's meaning, to try to explain why the degree you are about to receive has actual human value instead of just a material payoff. So let's talk about the single most persuasive cliche in the commencement speech genre, which is that a liberal arts education is not so much about filling you up with knowledge as it is about teaching you how to think. If you're like me as a student, you've never liked hearing this, and you tend to feel a bit insulted by the claim that you needed anybody to teach you how to think, since the fact that you even got admitted to a college this good seems like proof that you already know how to think. But I'm going to posit to you that the liberal arts cliche turns out not to be insulting at all, because the really significant education in thinking that we're supposed to get in a place like this isn't really about the capacity to think, but rather about the choice of what to think about. If your total freedom of choice regarding what to think about seems too obvious to waste time discussing, I'd ask you to think about fish and water, and to bracket for just a few minutes of your skepticism about the value of the totally obvious. Here's another didactic little story. There are these 2 guys sitting together in a bar in the remote Alaskan wilderness. One of the guys is religious, the other is an atheist, and the two are arguing about the existence of God with that special intensity that comes after about the fourth beer. And the atheist says, look, it's not like I don't have actual reasons for not believing in God. It's not like I haven't ever experimented with the whole God and prayer thing. Just last month, I got caught away from the camp in this terrible blizzard. I was totally lost and I couldn't see a thing. And it was 50 below, and so I tried it. I fell to my knees in the snow and cried out, oh God, if there is God, I'm lost in this blizzard and I'm going to die if you don't help me. And now, in the bar, the religious guy looks at the atheist all puzzled. Well, then you must believe, he says. After all, here you are, alive. The atheist just rolls his eyes. No, man. All that was a couple of Eskimos happened to come wandering by and showed me the way back to camp. It's easy to run this story through a kind of standard liberal arts analysis. The exact same experience can mean two totally different things to two different people, given those people's two different belief templates and two different ways of constructing meaning from experience. Because we prize tolerance and diversity of belief, nowhere in our liberal arts analysis do we want to claim that one guy's interpretation is true and the other guy's is false or bad, which is fine, except we also never end up talking about just where these individual templates and beliefs come from, meaning where they come from inside the two guys. As if a person's most basic orientation toward the world and the meaning of his experience were somehow just hardwired, like height or shoe size, and automatically absorbed from the culture, like language. As if how we construct meaning were not actually a matter of personal, intentional choice. Plus, there's the whole matter of arrogance. The non-religious guy is so totally certain in his dismissal of the possibility that the passing Eskimos had anything to do with his prayer for help. True, there are plenty of religious people who seem arrogant and certain of their own interpretations too. They're probably even more repulsive than atheists, at least to most of us. But religious dogmatists' problem is exactly the same as the story's unbeliever. Blind certainty, a close-mindedness that amounts to an imprisonment so total that the prisoner doesn't even know he's locked up. The point here is that I think this one part of what teaching me how to think is really supposed to mean. To be just a little less arrogant, to have just a little critical awareness about myself and my certainties, because a huge percentage of the stuff that I tend to be automatically certain of is, it turns out, totally wrong and diluted. I have learned this the hard way, as I predict you graduates will too. Here's just one example of the total wrongness of something I tend to be automatically sure of. Everything in my own immediate experience supports my deep belief that I am the absolute center of the universe, the realest, most vivid, and important person in existence. We rarely think about this sort of natural, basic self-centeredness because it's so socially repulsive, but it's pretty much the same for all of us. It's our default setting, hardwired into our boards at birth. Think about it. There is no experience you have had that you are not the absolute center of. The world as you experience it is there in front of you or behind you, to the left or right of you on your TV or your monitor, and so on. Other people's thoughts and feelings have to be communicated to you somehow, but your own are so immediate, urgent, real. Please don't worry that I'm getting ready to lecture you about compassion or other directedness or all the so-called virtues. This is not a matter of virtue. It's a matter of my choosing to do the work of somehow altering or getting free of my natural hardwired default setting, which is to be deeply and literally self-centered and to see and interpret everything through this lens of self. People who can adjust their natural default setting this way are often described as being well-adjusted, which I suggest to you is not an accidental term. Given the triumphant academic setting here, an obvious question is how much of this work of adjusting our default setting involves actual knowledge or intellect. this question gets very tricky. Probably the most dangerous thing about an academic education, at least in my own case, is that it enables my tendency to over-intellectualize stuff, to get lost in abstract argument inside my head instead of simply paying attention to what is going on right in front of me, paying attention to what is going on inside me. As I'm sure you guys know by now, it is extremely difficult to stay alert and attentive instead of getting hypnotized by the constant monologue inside your own head, which may be happening right now. 20 years after my own graduation, I have come gradually to understand that the liberal arts cliche about teaching you how to think is actually shorthand for a much deeper, more serious idea. Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, you will be totally hosed. Think of the old cliche about the mind being an excellent servant but a terrible master. This, like many cliches, so lame and unexciting on the surface, actually expresses a great and terrible truth. It is not the least bit coincidental that adults who commit suicide with firearms are almost always shoot themselves in the head. They shoot the terrible master. And the truth is that most of these suicides are actually dead long before they pulled the trigger. And I submit that this is what the real, no bullshit value of your liberal arts education is supposed to be about. How to keep from going through your comfortable, prosperous, respectable adult life dead, unconscious, a slave to your head and to your natural default setting of being uniquely, completely, imperially alone day in and day out. That may sound like hyperbole or abstract nonsense, so let's get concrete. The plain fact is that you graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what day in, day out really means. There happen to be a whole large part of adult American life that nobody talks about in commencement speeches. One such part involves boredom, routine, and petty frustration. The parents and older folks here will know all too well what I'm talking about. By way of example, let's say it's an average adult day, and you get up in the morning, go to your challenging white-collar college graduate job, and you work hard for 8 or 10 hours, and at the end of the day you're tired and somewhat stressed, and all you want to do is go home and have a good supper and maybe unwind for an hour, and then hit the sack early because, of course, you have to get up the next day and do it all again. But then you remember there's no food at home. You haven't had time to shop this week because of your challenging job, and so now, after work, you have to get in your car and drive to the supermarket. It's the end of the workday and the traffic is apt to be very bad. So getting to the store takes way longer than it should, and when you're finally there, the supermarket is very crowded because of course it's the time of day when all the other people with jobs also try to squeeze in some grocery shopping. And the store is hideously lit and infused with soul-killing music and corporate pop, and it's pretty much the last place you want to be, but you can't just get in and out quickly. You have to wander all over the huge, overlit store's confusing aisles to find the stuff you want, and you have to maneuver your junky cart through all these other tired, hurried people with carts, etc., cutting stuff out because this is a long ceremony. And eventually, you get all your supper supplies, except now it turns out that there aren't enough checkout lanes open even though it's the end of the day rush. So the checkout line is incredibly long, which is stupid and infuriating. But you can't take out your frustration on the frantic lady working the register who is overworked at a job whose daily tedium and meaninglessness surpasses the imagination of any of us here at a prestigious college. But anyway, you finally get to the checkout line's front, and you pay for your food, and you get told to have a nice day, in a voice that is the absolute voice of death. Then you have to take your creepy, flimsy plastic bags of groceries in your cart with the one crazy wheel that pulls maddeningly to the left, all the way out through the crowded, bumpy, littery parking lot. And then you have to drive all the way home through slow, heavy, SUV-intensive rush hour traffic etc., etc. Everyone here has done this, of course, but it hasn't yet been a part of you graduates' actual life routine, day after week after month after year. But it will be, and many more dreary, annoying, seemingly meaningless routines besides. But that's not the point. The point is that petty, frustrating crap like this is exactly where the work of choosing is going to come in. Because the traffic jams and crowded aisles and long checkout lines give me time to think, and if I don't make a conscious decision about how to think and what to pay attention to, I'm going to be pissed and miserable every time I have to shop. Because my natural default setting is the certainty that situations like this are really all about me, about my hungriness and my fatigue and my desire to just get home, and it's going to seem for all the world like everybody else is just in my way. And who are all these people in my way? And look how repulsive most of them are, and how stupid and cow-like and dead-eyed and non-human they seem in the checkout line, or how annoying and rude it is for people to talk loudly on cell phones in the middle of the line. And look at how deeply and personally unfair this is. Or, of course, if I'm in a more socially conscious liberal arts form of my default setting, I can spend time in the end of the day traffic being disgusted about all the huge, stupid, lane-blocking SUVs and Hummers and V12 pickup trucks burning their wasteful, selfish 40-gallon tanks of gas, and I can dwell on the fact the patriotic or religious bumper stickers always seem to be on the biggest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles, driven by the ugliest, most disgustingly selfish vehicles, driven by the ugliest, most inconsiderate and aggressive drivers. And I can think about how our children's children will despise us for wasting all the future's fuel and probably screwing up the climate, and how spoiled and stupid and selfish and disgusting we all are, and how modern consumer society just sucks, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. If I choose to think this way in a store and on the freeway, fine. Lots of us do. Except thinking this way tends to be so easy and automatic that it doesn't have to be a choice. It is my natural default setting. It is the automatic way that I experience the boring, frustrating, crowded parts of adult life when I am operating on the automatic, unconscious belief that I am the center of the world and that my immediate needs and feelings are what should determine the world's priorities. The thing is that, of course, there are totally different ways to think about these kinds of situations. In this traffic, all the vehicles stopped and idling in my way. It's not impossible that some of these people in SUVs have been in horrible auto accidents in the past and now find driving so terrifying that their therapist has all but ordered them to get a huge, heavy SUV so that they can feel safe enough to drive. Or that the Hummer that just cut me off is maybe being driven by a father whose little child is hurt or sick in the seat next to him, and he's trying to get his kid to the hospital, and he's in a bigger, more legitimate hurry than I am. It is actually I who am in his way. Or I can choose to force myself to consider the likelihood that everyone else in the supermarket's checkout line is just as bored and frustrated as I am, and that some of these people probably have harder, more tedious, and painful lives than I do. Again, please don't think that I'm giving you moral advice or that I'm saying you are supposed to think this way or that anyone expects you to just automatically do it, because it's hard. It takes will and effort, and if you are like me, some days you just won't be able to do it or you just flat out won't want to. But most days, if you're aware enough to give yourself a chance, you can choose to look differently at this fat, dead-eyed, over-made-up lady who just screamed at her kid in the checkout line. Maybe she's not usually like this. Maybe she's been up 3 straight nights holding the hand of a husband who is dying of bone cancer. Or maybe this very lady is the low-wage clerk at the motor vehicle department who just yesterday helped your spouse resolve a horrific, infuriating red tape problem through some small act of bureaucratic kindness. Of course, none of this is likely, but it's also not impossible. It just depends on what you want to consider. If you're automatically sure that you know what reality is, and you're operating on your default setting, then you, like me, probably won't consider the possibilities that aren't annoying and miserable. But if you really learn how to pay attention, then you will know that there are other options. It will actually be within your power to experience a crowded, hot, slow, consumer hell type situation, and not only meaningful but sacred, on fire with the same force that made the stars: love, fellowship. The mystical oneness of all things deep down. Okay, so this speech, which is called This Is Water, was written and originally given by David Foster Wallace, who was a fabulous author. I think it was in 2005, and it was at Kenyon College, so just repeating that. And I highly recommend reading the rest of it. I think it is a pretty long speech, but it's really good, and it only gets better. And yeah, so that was This Is Water. Apparently you can find it on moreintelligentlife.com. Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. It's just that simple here at Diction for Dollars. You can come and speak. It can be your words, it can be someone else's words. It doesn't even have to make sense. The way it works is we pay $1 a minute up to 20 minutes. If you come up to the lectern, all of it is being broadcast online and being recorded as well. And we'll be doing it tonight only until 7:30. In the past iterations, we've done 2 sections and a late night session as well, but tonight we'll be finishing at 7:30, and then we'll be having a guided meditation marathon starting at 8 and running till 11. And that'll feature some really wonderful experimental writers and artists from Los Angeles. So please stick around for any of that. Yes?
Are there going to be more in the future, or is this the last one?
There's going to be one more after this in terms of Diction for Dollars, and that will be a week from today, Thursday, December 6th, from 5 to 7:30 as well. So, so please come on out. It's very easy, but let's, the minutes are ticking away, so let's go ahead and get Justyna. Would you like to come up? This is Justyna, is it Beal?
Bicz.
Oh, Bicz, and she's going to be doing, what is it? Oh, tongue twisters. Let's hear it for Justyna.
Well, I have a couple prepared, and then I don't know if any of you know any. I'm trying to do them in different languages, so if any of you know other languages and could demonstrate, I would also love to learn those. So maybe I'll start with English just to warm up. Luke Luck licks lakes. Luke's duck, or Luke Luck likes lakes. Luke's duck likes lakes. Luke Luck licks lakes. Luke's duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lakes Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes duck likes. Luke Luck likes lakes. Luke's duck likes lakes. Luke Luck licks lakes. Luke's duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lakes Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes duck likes. Luke Luck likes lakes. Luke's duck likes lakes. Luke Luck licks lakes. Luck's duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lakes Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes duck likes. Luke Luck likes lakes. Luke's duck likes lakes. Luke Luck licks lakes. Luke's duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes. Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Luke Luck licks lakes, Luke's Duck licks lakes. Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes. Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes. Okay, then I have one in Spanish. The English one seems to be the most difficult for me, I don't know why. So this one is, tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. En tres tristes trastos tragaban trigo tres tristes tigres. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. En tres tristes trastos tragaban trigo tres tristes tigres. En tres tristes tigres, en tres tristes en tres tristes tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. En tres tristes trastos tragaban trigo tres tristes tigres. Tres tristes tigres tragaban trigo en un trigal en tres tristes trastos. En tres tristes trastos tragaban trigo tres tristes tigres. And then this one's in Polish. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Nie pieprz pieprze pieprzem wieprza, wtedy szynka będzie lepsza. Another one in Polish. Chrząszcz brzmi w trzcinie, w Szczebrzeszynie. 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 Maybe I'll go back to the English one and try and get that. Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes, Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Luke Luck takes licks lakes, Luke's Duck licks lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes. Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Luke Luck licks lakes, Luke's Duck licks lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes, Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke's Duck likes lakes, Luke Luck licks lakes, Luke's Duck licks lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes. I have one in Greek. Mia fora que enakero y pirge enas calosieros, 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 mira fora que enakero y pirge enas calosieros, y mia fora que enakero y pirge enas calosieros, 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 mia fora que enakero y pirge enas calosieros. I have one in Cantonese. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ya ge go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ge ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. Go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ge go go. In French, les chaussettes de l'archiduchesse sont-elles sèches? Ah, sèches. 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 Mia fora que enakero y pirge enas calosieros. I have. This is in Russian. Mama muila mila muilo mila muila ni lubila. Mama muila mila muilo mila muila ni lubila. Mama muila mila muilo mila muila ni lubila. Mama muila mila muila muila ni lubila. Mama muila mila muila muila ni lubila. Mama muila mila muilo Mama muila mila muilo mila muila nilubila. Mama muila mila muilo mila muila nilubila. Mama muila mila muilo mila muila nilubila. Mama muila mila muila Mama muila mila muilo mila muila nilubila. Mama muila mila muila mila mila nilubila. There's some other in Russian. Karl uklari ukral karali aklara akarla ukrala klarinet. Karl uklari ukral karali aklara akarla ukrala klarinet. Karl uklari ukral karali aklara akarla ukrala klarinet. And then I'll go back to the one that I started with. Just see if I can get it right this time. Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke Stuck likes lakes, Luke Stuck licks lakes, Luck Stuck licks lakes, Luck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck likes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes, Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke Stuck likes lakes, Luke Luck licks lakes, Luke's Duck licks lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck Luke takes licks in lakes, Duck likes, Luke Luck likes lakes, Luke Stuck likes lakes, Luke Luck licks lakes, Luck's Duck licks lakes, Duck takes licks in lakes, Luke Luck takes licks in lakes, Duck likes. And then does anyone know any other ones in other languages that they could say? Some of them, most of them. The Spanish one is like about some tigers eating in a pasture. The Polish one, it means like the word pepper. Pieprz is pepper, so it says don't pepper Peter with pepper, and then it's like a certain type of food, and then like the food will be better. I don't really know what the Greek one means. I think the French one was about drying socks. Les chaussettes de l'archiduchesse sont sèches, ach sèches. But I have trouble with the R's, so I need to practice that one. I think the Cantonese one, which was the go 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 ga ya go 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 ga ga go go. Each country has each country's national anthem. But that one, it's like hard because like you have to like, even though it's the same sound, you have to inflect it like it's supposed to go like minute, so that one's tricky. And I think the Russian ones is like something about like liking something, but I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you so much, Justyna. That was super. All right. Erwynnda, would you like to, are you ready or no? Okay. Okay. Gustavo, would you be interested in coming up now? All right. So next up, so again, welcome to Diction-for-Dollars. Welcome if this is your first time, welcome back. If you've been here before, this is all being broadcast online, live right now and being recorded. Everybody who comes up to speak will earn $1 a minute. We round down here, so if you were to speak for 3.5 minutes, you will earn $3. So make sure you push it all the way to the limit, and you can speak up to 20 minutes. If you'd like to sign up, we've still got a bunch of space left. A reminder, today we're only going until 7:30 for the Diction for Dollars. There'll be no late evening session because we'll have a guided meditation marathon afterwards. So come and find me. But next up, let's go ahead and keep going. Next up, we've got Gustavo, and he's going to be reading Journal Reading and Senior Life. Let's hear it for Gustavo.
Okay, hello, my name is Gustavo, and this is my first time up here speaking. And so it's very last minute, and I'm the kind of person who never really complains about anything, but lately I've been like really stressed with life, and I kind of just want to talk about senior life and what senior thesis means, because I always saw people like being stressed over senior thesis, and I'm like, okay, it's kind of like adding another class, just another project, but it really, I guess it means so much because it's like wrapping up your college life in just like this one project. I'm a geology major, and my project's a science project, and I'm like talking about rocks and history of the earth, and it's great. And but sometimes it's a little stressful just because I think, great, I'm wrapping up my college life talking about rocks. And it's exciting for geologists, and it's exciting for me, but then I think about how is that exciting for other people? Like if I don't know, it's like wrapping up college life, I think should be about something you can like show to other people as well. Like, hey, this is what I sort of accomplished in college. And I don't know if you'd be interested in hearing about my geology project. But I actually wasn't planning on sharing about it, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think many people are interested in learning about like the Earth's history, because it's not something that affects us so directly as, I guess, human history that's like been written about by humans because they lived it. This is history that's happened underneath the Earth, that's never been seen. It's kind of just science, numbers, equations, calculations, and so yeah. So I thought it was just going to be another project, sort of another class, and it's a lot more than that. And I don't know, I guess I'm not actually complaining that much about it, because I'm just not used to it, but I don't know, I just feel like I wanted to say something about it. And that's what I want to say. And then I also had a journal reading thing that I want to sort of read through. So background to this was I'm Christian, and my family is very spiritual, and I'm very spiritual. I think I used to be more, and now I think I've lost a little bit of that spiritual connection. But I tried one time to like keep this journal, and it's like about a very nice journal, and I'm like, I'm gonna read the Bible and write in here, and I only got through like three like different verses, and I stopped, because it's, even if it's not about the Bible, even if it's just like a personal diary, I've never been able to keep up with it, and I don't know why. It's hard to write down your thoughts, but I want to read here. And the journal says, what we feel, think, and do this moment influences both our present and the future in ways we may never know. Start right now where you are. Consider your possibilities and find inspiration to add more meaning and zest to life. Okay, so this is from, July 22nd, 2010. In 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. And I read through this earlier, and it's just like very interesting how my writing style and just thoughts, it's like super short. It says, I can only imagine what it would be like to be in the manifested presence of God. This is why I must seek his face, so that I may no longer have to imagine, be forever changed in his presence. 7 days later, July 29th, 2010. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. My thoughts. When God begins to work through me, I cannot set limits to his might, for I will always be amazed by the new things I witness. He is God, and I am only a vessel. He is the only one worthy of any and all the praise. If I step out of his way, I will go wrong. But if I remain faithful, I am certain that he will never leave me, and in doing his will, I will never be abandoned or put to shame. Then, this is August 3rd, 2010. Joel 2:12-13. Even now declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting and weeping and mourning. Rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love, and he relents from sending calamity. The Lord has called me and my family to a week of fasting, because he loves us and cares that we seek his grace, love, glory, and manifested presence. He desires a rendering of our hearts as we hail him as King of Kings and the one true living God. We have so much to thank him for, and we must return to his calling. So yeah, that's my 3 entries. And at that point in life, I thought like they were so deep. And now looking back, like I just like put so much thought into like these really short journal entries, and then suddenly stopped. And I have no idea why. And that's all I have to share for today. Thank you.
All right. Let's hear it again for Gustavo. Thank you. Great. I just need you to sign something real quick. You just about to get 7 minutes, so it'll be $6. Are you Pomona or you'll just sign, print to sign. Great, thank you so much. Okay. So with 6 minutes and 50 seconds, Gustavo has earned $6. So everyone help me out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you so much. Alrighty, excellent. Thank you so much, Gustavo, for the excellent talk. Let's just keep things going. Again, this is Diction for Dollars. You can earn $1 a minute. You can speak up to 20 minutes. This is being broadcast live online and recorded. There's still plenty of space on the board. So come and see me while someone else is speaking if you'd like to sign up. Next up, we're going to have a return visitor, William Willie Carpenter, who's going to be doing books I'm reading or an anthropological examination of my life. So let's hear it for William Willie Carpenter.
How's it going, everybody? If you haven't seen me before, welcome. And for my my long-term fans, thanks for coming out tonight. I see Alana in the crowd, didn't know she was in this room. I want to give a shout out to her. We had breakfast together this morning, it was nice. I wanted to talk about a couple of books that I'm reading because this year I've been reading for pleasure a little bit. I fit that into my schedule, and I love it. But also, there's nobody to talk about the books with. So, lend me your ears. And, all right, here we go. One book I'm reading, it's called Dreams from My Father. You might have heard of it. It's by our president. I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and it's a good book. It's pretty interesting. I don't know. I feel like you hear some things about Barack Obama's life story, just like in debates and things, and Time magazine will write an article about him or something, and I just really wanted to hear more of it. So I got the book, and it deals a lot with race, a little bit more than I expected it to. I mean, I guess I just didn't know that much about the book. But the way that Barack Obama frames his life is like a lot of his decisions and things were motivated by like his internal conflict with race and like racial identity. He grew up in Indonesia for a little while. He was in Hawaii. He was in Hawaii until he was about 6, and then he moved to Indonesia with his mom because she got an Indonesian husband. And so Indonesia was pretty poor back then. It's still relatively poor compared to us, which that's not probably a good metric. But I don't know. He lived in Indonesia for a little while, and then he came back to Hawaii. And he only saw his dad once his whole life. It was when he was about 10 years old. And his dad visited for 3 weeks. Obama was living with his mother and his mother's parents, his grandparents, in Hawaii. And his dad came and visited. And his dad visited because he was having a terrible time in Kenya. He was standing up against the government, and they didn't want him. I think they kicked him out. Not sure exactly, but and he was having family issues and things, and so he came to visit Obama and his family in Hawaii. And he was a really smart guy, but really stubborn. And so Barack, he grew up with just his white mom and his white grandparents, and sort of discovered like the possibility of a black identity, like in a different way than some minority races. Than most minority races do. And so yeah, a lot of it was racial issues, and then it's interesting. It's good, and I could say more about the racial issues, but I was thinking about it, and I think when you're a white male and you're ever trying to speak about any like women's issues or racial issues, I feel like it's hard. Like I just don't want to say anything wrong, and but I do want to learn, and I'm taking a class next semester, but we'll see. I don't know. We won't talk about that here. Let's see. I was interested in reading about Barack Obama in college. One thing that I think most of my peers, or some of my friends, really just a few of my friends, people really like that picture of Barack Obama. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a photo of him in college, and he's got the fro pretty long, and he's wearing a leather jacket, sitting on a sofa, just smoking weed. I think a joint or something, I don't know. And he's got some smoke in front of him, and he's smiling. And people really like that photo. I don't know if you've seen it. Has anybody seen it? Yeah. But that's not who our president is at all. He just did a complete 180. That photo was when he was living in LA and going to college there. Complete slacker. Not a complete slacker, but he was a rebel. He wasn't really into school that much. And then the summer after that, he transferred to Columbia in New York, and he just transformed himself as a person. He started running 3 miles a day, stopped doing any drugs, which I guess he had been pretty into. He did cocaine in high school, I think. So that was kind of crazy. And he just completely turned himself around, and I think it's interesting. I think a lot of the successful people in the world, a lot of the really driven people, like type A personalities, are really more prone to addictions. But then Barack Obama, so he was kind of prone to like doing drugs and getting into bad habits, and he just took all of that energy and just turned it around and put it into like just being a good person, basically. He put it into learning, and then later on he went to Harvard Law School, but he just wrote letters to like every civil rights organization in like all over the country, like a ton of them. And he only got one offer, and it was in Chicago for a $10,000 salary. I don't even know, like, how did he live off that? How did he live safely off that? Read the book and you'll find out. But yeah, so we went to Chicago, and he just did community building, and like, I remember hearing that phrase a lot, more in the first election when like we were trying to learn Barack Obama's story. I feel like the second one, everybody already knows this story. But yeah, he was a community builder, and like there's no other word for it. So he went into Chicago, and his goal was literally on the south side of Chicago, really poor place. His goal was just to turn it around, and he did eventually, but he was just working with churches and schools and thinking of anything, any issue he could get the government to hear about. And he did a great job with that. So that's another thing. I'm going to talk about the second book. Is this good? You guys enjoying this analysis? Yeah, woo. All right, good. This book is called Zen and the Art of Archery. And actually, I have to talk to my Acting 1 class about it, but I'm sure that none of them are going to read the book. Even the other people who have to present with me, they're not going to read it. So, but I just read it because I wanted to, because it was kind of interesting. So I'm going to read a little excerpt from it. All right, here we go. One of the most significant features we notice in the practice of archery, and in fact of all the arts as they are studied in Japan and probably also in other Far Eastern countries, is written in the 50s, is that they are not intended for utilitarian purposes only or for purely aesthetic enjoyments, but are meant to train the mind, indeed, to bring it into contact with the ultimate reality. Archery is, therefore, not practiced solely for hitting the target. The swordsman does not wield the sword just for the sake of outdoing his opponent. The dancer does not dance just to perform certain rhythmical movements of the body. The mind has first to be attuned to the unconsciousness. If one really wishes to be a master of an art, technical knowledge of it is not enough. One has to transcend technique so that the art becomes an artless art growing out of the unconscious. And so this book is all about a German professor who was teaching in Japan between World War I and World War II. And for 6 years he was teaching, and for 6 years he got trained in archery from a master with a capital M. so like a master within the Japanese system of archery. And he talks about how since archery became completely impractical, it had always been considered a spiritual art, but it became like even more purified as that because now it's only done for spiritual purposes. And so basically this guy got trained for 6 years just trying to do the simplest things with archery. And so the first thing he had to do was he had to learn to pull back the bow without using his arm somehow. I don't understand how that works because doing this motion, I feel my arms working. But he had to just flex the hand, and that was all, and the rest of his body has to be completely relaxed. And he spent 1 year learning how to do that, practicing every day with the master. And the master, I think the master said probably 5 sentences to him within that whole year, because most of the time the master just doesn't want you to talk to him at all. And then the next task after pulling it back relaxed, with the arms relaxed, was he had to let go effortlessly. And it wasn't even that he has to let go, because the way that he has to figure out how to do this is you can't let your mind, you can't consciously decide to let go, you just have to let the bow let go of itself. And so the whole time it has to be like a dream, because that's what Zen is just transcending that thinking part of your mind. And it's just wild to train that kind of thing. So really, this gave me a great understanding of Zen Buddhism and what Zen is. And I feel like you can only read so many books about Buddhism after a while. You just got to try it out. So I don't know. I think I'm going to go on like a meditation retreat or something. I don't think I'm going to end up Buddhist. I really don't. But I think I'm going to go into it. And the other interesting thing about the Zen is, what was it? Lost my train of thought. It's that I don't know, forget it. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, I could talk a little bit about religion a little bit more. I think I'm going to end up being a religious person. I saw Life of Pi, the movie, and I read the book, and I don't know, like, it's crazy how one book can kind of like, I mean, it didn't shape my whole spiritual life, but that's pretty wild, and just chance occurrences shape so much of our lives. It's wild. That's about it, I guess, for tonight. Thank you guys for listening to me.
Carpenter. Thank you so much. All right, you know the routine, so 13, 11. You are Money affiliated or no? Yes. What do you guys think? So print and sign. Super. So for William's Zen Curious lecture at clocking in at 13 and 11, he's going to get $13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Thank you. All right. Thanks Thanks everyone for being here. Erwynnda, are you ready? Are you ready? No? Okay, someone else? So, just a reminder, we're only going till 7:30. This is Diction for Dollars. We're going to try and keep it rolling. But a couple announcements. We've got an incredible guided meditation marathon coming up tonight starting at 8, and it will run until a little bit before 11. We've got 3 amazing groups of experimental artists who will be doing some wonderful guided meditations, including Johnny Jungle Guts, Matthew Timmons, and UNFO, the Unauthorized Narrative Freedom Organization. Also, a new issue of the BESHT Weekly has just come out, I believe either today or yesterday. It's issue number 4. All of the issues, yes, it's fantastic. There's a bunch of, all 4 are available for free. Feel free to grab 1 or more copies and show them to your friends. A bunch of really great experimental writers and artists also in here. This is our self-help issue. This is all, I know you guys are very busy this week at school. And the next week, so we're trying to get you guys nice and grounded, centered, ready to produce, to pass. But anyways, we'll continue. A reminder that this is all being recorded live and broadcast live online. So hopefully some friends and family are watching at home. We'll wave to you if you are. Up next is David Logan Connor, who's going to be, the title of his talk is Questions. Let's hear it for David.
I'm going to require silence during this. Just kidding. So I think for the sake of just sincerity and honesty to start this off, because I think this should be an honest dialogue, I need to tell all of you that I've mascaraed my mustache today, and it's not usually this dark. I don't have much of a plan up here. I'm going to improvise mostly. But I do have a poem that I've been working on that I can recite for you right now called I'm a Poet and I Know It. Pow, 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 I'm a poet. Pow, 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 I'm a poet. Pow, 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 I'm a poet. Pow, 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 and I know it. That's the poem. It's a work in progress. What else do I have prepared? Okay, so there are certain things that I would like to talk about. One of which includes irony. is irony the device that we use sometimes when we're doing the opposite of what we mean or do or mean or say. And there's been that article floating around about saying like entitled "How to Live Without Irony." And I think I use irony a lot, and so this certainly got me thinking about irony and how it can be a defense mechanism. And I think that's true because I definitely think sometimes I say things where I'm not sure which side of them I lie on, like what belief I truly hold, and so I'll say something where I can kind of express my uncertainty with the irony. So for instance, like an example of that would be, does anyone have an example of a good example for that? For where like you use irony to kind of like take both sides of an argument? I suppose like, okay, so like a good example is like if someone says something that's like mildly politically incorrect or like mildly racist, you'd be like, oh, that's racist, dude. And like, so like in saying that, you're like acknowledging that something said could be construed as racist, but you're also like ironically being like, but I don't care, or just like making light of it. What's funny?
But I don't care.
Okay. And so I suppose in a situation like that, irony isn't a great thing to use, but I do think that it's perfectly fine, even in that situation, even in situations where you're being ambiguous about how you truly feel about something, to use irony, because I know I don't have certain beliefs about everything, And I think it's an appropriate way to express that sometimes through irony. And then, of course, irony can be used for many other great things that I'm not going to go into because they're obvious and we can all think about them. So the title of my speech to you is Questions. So I would like to open this to the floor if anyone has any questions of any sort to me. It could be anything from practical questions to questions about myself to questions about anything. Yeah.
I have a question about the mascaraing of your mustache.
Yeah.
Since you've done, because I know this is not the first day you've done it,
Yeah.
have you noticed anything different in the
Oh,
way
that's
people
good.
look at you?
Yeah. Well, I guess, I don't know. I don't interact with people that don't know me usually on campus. But I have noticed that at the expo line at Harvey Mudd and also at Pomona, they're giving me more meat than usual. But I haven't had many other interactions. I don't know. I'll definitely think about that. Anyone? Yeah.
How do you feel about the idea that Buddhism is the cure to being a hipster?
Ooh, okay. Well, I like that question. So I guess like, what are you like saying are the qualities of a hipster?
Basically, just the irony thing.
The irony thing. Yeah. Well, all right. Maybe you could try to answer that. What do you think to your own question?
No, I just want you to.
If Buddhism? Well, I guess like I'm no expert on Buddhism, but
Okay, I'll explain. Can I explain briefly? Is that cheating? No. Okay, good. Buddhism, because if you're being ironic about everything, you're like not really expressing like any definite belief in a lot of things.
sure.
And like if you're tired of like worldly, like other systems of morality, like Buddhism places no value in like having beliefs about things.
Yeah.
So you could take all that irony and just put it in Buddhism. Maybe just one
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I think actually, yeah, that'd be an interesting thing to think about is like correlations between like uses of irony and like belief, like Buddhist practice. I'm not the expert, so I won't go into it, but I'll think about it and I'll read about it. That's a good idea. But yeah, so I've noticed a theme throughout this entire thing of sincerity and irony and insincerity. And would you consider irony to be something that's insincere?
A lot of the time, sarcasm.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, that's good. All right, you've given me a lot to think about. I'm assuming there are no more questions for me about anything. Oh no, Emily had a question.
Well, I disagree. Because I think that irony, I don't completely disagree, but I think that a lot of times the irony, like you said, can highlight upon the sincerity of things. And like, why you would say like, hey, that's racist, dude, or whatever, is like the sincerity of the fact that, I don't know, I think that can be really big sincerity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that like it is. It's just like, I think there's nothing wrong with taking both sides of an argument. I really don't. And I think like irony is a device that allows you to like simultaneously hold two beliefs, which is a pretty powerful thing. I'll end this with a poem. Oh, I have a question. Well, I think personally good, because, or not just personally good, but I think it demonstrates a certain amount of humility to not think that you're like to hold like a dogmatic belief and like stick to it without considering the other side.
But it is kind of pleasant when it's ironic, and it's not like a considered position where you're like withholding judgment about decisions, where it's like, oh, like, like look at me.
Yeah, I think it can be that. I think it could be either. I don't know. I mean, it can definitely be used poorly. Like, it can be used as like a device, like as a defense mechanism, or to like manipulate people into like thinking that you agree with them.
Give a specific example.
Yeah, this is difficult.
Okay, here's an example where it could be bad. Like, have you ever had so many people, like, have you had the conversation, what did you do over break, or how was your break? Everybody asks, how was your break after Thanksgiving break? Like, 15 people are going to be asked that question. You just get tired of it.
Yeah.
After a while, do you ever just give a completely ironic answer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good example of an irony situation.
Or give an example of what you would say.
So like, how was your break? Like, it was terrible. I hated it. Right? Wouldn't that be ironic? Because it's like, oh, it was break. But like,
And
people.
then you never tell them how it was.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know if that's a good example. I don't know if that demonstrates anything. I should have come prepared with examples. Maybe next time I will. Yeah, what's a good example?
Like, just say, just.
Oh, I just have a question.
Yeah.
If Will's gonna answer.
Wait, what's the question?
Oh, I have a question. Do you feel like being, like, irony is, like, a big part of your humor? Like, your sense of humor?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know, like, when you talk about it, I feel like you're kind of down on yourself for, like, being ironic, because you feel like, I feel like insincere is, like, a really bad thing. Or I feel like most of us would consider it that, but I feel like humor is, like, a really sincere thing. Even if, like, your form of it is, like, maybe not about, like, you know.
But maybe he's being ironic about feeling bad about it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, because then it does leave a certain amount of ambiguity. Like, it makes someone more difficult to read when they're ironic, because you don't know when they're being serious sometimes. But I don't know how to read myself, so I think maybe that's appropriate.
You can maybe spend more time preparing less time mascarating your mustache.
I think the mascaring of the mustache is emblematic of my internal struggle with sincerity, so no. All right, last question, because then I'm going to go ahead.
Will you please make 47 nonverbal sounds,
Okay.
some of which involve your mouth and some which don't?
47 of them?
Yeah.
No, I won't do that.
It said 13.
I appreciate the thought, though, because that would get me more money. But
Just do 7 of them.
7 sounds? Okay. Yansu. Damn. What? Is that 5 so far? That's 7. Okay, I'm going to end this with a poem by Wallace Stevens called The Snowman. And I'm going to paraphrase it because I know the gist of it by heart, but I don't know it line by line for heart. But you guys should all look it up when you get home tonight. The Snowman. And it's the snowman, 2 words for snowman. Not snowman, but snowman. The snowman. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers and the spruces shagged with ice, rough in the distant glitter of the January sun. and not to think, and have been cold a very long time, not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, blowing in the same bare place, for the listener, who listens in the snow, and nothing himself, beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. All right, that's it.
Thank you so much, David. All right, let's get you all paid up. So we're at about 13 minutes and 45 seconds. $13. Are you a moment, please? Yes. So if you'll print and sign. Thank you. So everybody help us out with 13 minutes. David and Connor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, David. Just a reminder, if for those of you who don't go all the way to the limit, if there ends up being time left on the sign-up sheet, people can, if you, for instance, David just spoke for 13 minutes. If there was room and he wanted to speak for another 7, that would be possible. So that probably won't be possible today, but we'll see. So let's just keep things rolling. Again, this is being broadcast live online. And I forgot to mention, I'm actually a guru tonight. I'm filling in for Professor Padupaga, and that's because one of my organizations, the Experimental Meditation Center of Los Angeles, is co-sponsoring tonight's guided meditation marathon. So, and you're in store for some really great and relaxing, wonderful meditations, experimental meditations tonight. Let's see. So, Erwynnda, are you ready, or are you still waiting for your group, for your audience? Okay. Is Emily Rose Rothschild Glass here? Yes. Let's hear it for Emily. She's going to be talking about some things.
I don't have it planned out. Is that a requirement? Oh no, I won't. I don't get offended. Like really, ever. That's like something I struggle with. 'Cause like, yeah. Let's see. I'm gonna start with this. Okay, so this thing has been bought, like, I've been thinking a lot about this. Not this, what I'm about to say. And there's this, okay, so you're in class, or like you're in anywhere, a public space, and you write something down on a piece of paper. But especially like in something where everyone's there for a certain reason. So like an academic class, or like right now, if people were there for the same reason, a performance or something. And it's like really interesting to me because like my brain tells me that it's not proper etiquette to look at what someone has written on their paper, like if they've written a note. And like, but I find myself really wanting to look and see what other people have written. Like I have a strong desire. And I don't know, it just makes me think a lot about that, because why, I mean, if someone is like, you can tell passionately saying something that would, obviously there's certain instances where you shouldn't look or something. But in other places, like in class, when I'm just writing about whatever the professor's saying, or just like my own thoughts, like people should totally look at each other's papers, because like even it would create like this other dialogue that would occur, in my opinion, because like you would write, I think people write down a lot more than people are willing to like put out into a discussion, and it would like probe other people's thoughts. And so that's like one thing about it. But also, I was in one of my classes and we were doing some performances, and you like could jot down some notes. And like I looked at someone's paper. I don't know if that's bad. And like I saw that, you know, like they wrote like in all capitals, intense eyes. And I don't know, like I thought that was really cool, because like I find that people are probably shy with their own paper. And like some people wouldn't even write intense eyes, because like you're all sitting there, and like what if someone saw that you wrote like intense eyes about, like, I don't know, I just think that people could be shy with their own paper, and that's really silly, and we should promote less silliness than that. So, I don't know, I think that it'd be cool if people looked at each other's papers. And then it wouldn't be such a thing, because I really dislike things. Like when, yeah, you know what I mean. The woman that was here in the pink sweater, she talked about something she highlighted on something that I was planning on, I wanted to come and talk about. And she talked about, like, the idea, it was a David Foster Wallace piece, and I've never read it. I've never read any David Foster Wallace. Sorry. And it was about, like, it was a commencement speech, and it was really phenomenal. I thought it was cool. I'm probably going to go, no, I probably won't, but. And it talked about how, like, when we go, in the real world, like, when you leave your tedious job and the boredom of life, and then you go to the grocery store, and it's just, like, the boredom of life, and it talked a lot about, like, outlooks on the world and the way you go about living. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because in the past, like, year and a half, I have, like, really levitated to the idea of mindfulness. And, like, the way that I describe, I was introduced to it because my father got a little bit into it, but my father doesn't really tend to actually get into anything. But that's okay. That's fine. But, like, I don't know. I got into that. And I don't get into things either, but I did get into this. And it's called mindfulness-based stress reduction. But overall, the idea of it is mindfulness. And it's about, like, the same thing that David Foster Wallace was kind of saying, which was that he was saying that if you're in the grocery store and you're tedious, you have to be there and be willing to, like, make a decision about things, and, like, choose which line to go into, and when you're driving in the freeway, be willing to be there and do that. And that was not really what he was saying, but that's what I turned it into. And it's interesting because, like, the idea is that you can't be worrying about the next moment or the last moment at all, and you just have to be right where you're at. And so my point is that in the past year and a half, I've started to try and do that a bit. And obviously, like, I'm no, like, Buddhist. I mean, maybe it's not obvious, but. And I don't know, I just think that it's really important, because I feel like humans are very silly, and, like, we just spend so much of our present life, like, analyzing things that have happened, and, like, worrying about them and how the effects they're going to have, and then, like, worrying about, like, what is going to come. And that's really upsetting to me, because you can't spend your life worrying, and I really don't want that for anyone at all. So if you want to, like, talk about mindfulness, talk about it, because I'm really into it. And I don't know, one thing that I've been thinking about is this idea that this is a Pomona College thing, so I don't mean to come up here and talk about a Pomona College thing, but I'm going to. And, like, some people at Pomona think that there should be another requirement about, like, a race class, or, like, yeah, like a class that you would be required to take a class like Intro to Sociology, or, like, black feminisms and something, or a variety of classes that deal with intersectionality and things of that nature. And I think it's really interesting because I think that there is a naivety that exists in any institution or place, and I hope that I'm not pretentious for saying that, but that's okay. But it's interesting because I kind of feel like from the people that I've heard this argument from, like, at first I was totally like, there needs to be this requirement. Like, people shouldn't just be able to come to a phenomenal institution, wherever it be, and simply like engage in one discipline that they know that they want to study, and this is what I want to learn about. Like, and whatever that may be, they should have to have the requirements, and one of them should be in regards to like race or class or something of that nature. But it's also, I've been thinking more about it because it's tough, because for the people, I feel like we're trying to instill, I don't know, this is not what we're trying to instill, but there's an idea that like some people don't realize how their voice is perceived, and there's an idea that as a white person you have that, or like a white male, you have to know how your voice is being perceived, because you don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think that's an extremely important thing, knowing who you are and where you fit into society and where your ideas are going to be like taken from, I guess. But also, I feel like that can limit so many thoughts that some person didn't necessarily mean offensively. And I'm not saying that they can just say whatever they want, but I mean that people shouldn't have the anxiety about worrying about what their voice is, how their voice is being perceived. Because if they have an anxiety about it, then it's not only going to limit what they say, but it's going to limit like their thoughts about it as well. And that's not productive. And obviously everything should be productive. I have this structure that I participate in my life, and it's a sport team. I play softball, and it's interesting because, like, it's very intense. I just was sitting on the floor, and I got this text message, and like multiple, and like they're very important. It says, "You guys check your email ASAP. I only forward it to you so far, and we can decide what to do later. I just don't think Coach T needs every softball player he doesn't like approaching him in the next few days. I demand immediate responses after you read it because I'm freaking out." So then I was like, here we go, softball. And so I went to my email, because I have this like fancy device that just lets me do that. And it's like this forwarded email that was going around within this other sport that the Coach T is a coach of. And it says, "Hey dudes, not sure if any of you guys have heard, but Coach Karen let me know today that Coach Tomeo has been offered a job at a D2 school that he's interviewing/applying for in the next few days. Probably not a ton of that we can do, but if you want to stop by and let him know you appreciate his efforts here, it might do more than we think as far as keeping him around. Sent this out to the defense, but blah, blah, blah." And so then I went back and got some more text messages like, "He can't leave," and then an F word. And then today I emailed him about some Nike stuff and talked to him about how we missed him in weights the past few days. And what I'm getting at, I don't know, this figure, Coach T, you guys I don't think know him, but he's a good like male figure in my life. And I don't know, I respect him a lot, and I don't know if I like have like a lot of intimate like respect for a lot of like adults in my life. And it's just interesting because yesterday I was walking across campus and I ran into him, and I like waved, and then we like stopped for a chat, and you know, he's like, how's it going, Em? And like, for some reason, he always knows something's going on with me. I feel like some people, you can ask them, how's it going? And like, good, and then like, that's the end of it. But like, some people, for some reason, think with me, like, when I say good, like, that there's so much more. And there is. But same with everyone, so that's really silly. I don't know why people do that to me. But that's okay. I like it. And so then we started chatting, and I was like, I have this thing where I change my major every day. And it's fun. It throws me for a loop. It keeps me on my toes. But it causes, you know, it can be tough. But it's only tough if you're not just being on that day. Because if I'm on that day and I'm like, hey, I'm a geology major, then that's perfect. And the next day when I wake up and I'm like, hey, today I feel like a philosophy major. As long as I'm not worrying about how I was a philosophy major yesterday and what major I'm going to be tomorrow, then it feels fine. But anyway, so I was talking to Coach T, and I was telling him about my struggle a little bit, about changing my major every day. And he was like, let me tell you something, Emily. I have an anthropology degree from Pomona College, and I'm 36 years old in 2 weeks, and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. And I don't know, I just think that that's the point of it. Like, you don't have, like, everyone in every point in their life is answering the question, what am I going to do with my life? And so it's not like, it's silly that people, obviously I really appreciate Coach T, and like, I'm gonna be upset if he goes and leaves, but the point is that like, everyone's just trying to figure out what they want to do with their life, and he has like things that he wants to do, and a kid, and like a wife, and I mean, like, it's the Inland Empire, and like, whatever. My point is that it's just so silly that then there's just so much like freaking out, because like, it's a path, and like, people have to be on it, and like, it doesn't end. I don't, like, we're sitting here now, or I am like, what am I gonna do with my life, aka like, what am I gonna major in? But I'm gonna be asking that for a long time, so we should be okay with asking that, and we should let other people ask that. On a totally separate thing, I've found that, in my opinion, I think that every person should validate their emotions. Because I've just been thinking about it, and I feel like so many of the people that I interact with, like, have this conflict, and like, the conflict is rooted in like, I feel this way, but I shouldn't, or I don't want to, or like, I shouldn't, like, that's not the right way, or I don't want to feel this way. But instead, I feel that if people just validated their emotions and then moved on from there, it would cause a lot less silliness. Because like, otherwise you're just going to be struggling with, you feel it, so like, get over it. It's valid. What you feel is valid. It's not that obvious. I don't know. It is obvious, but that's not the point. I just think that people should know that that's what I do, and it works for me. Oh, I have this thought. Is it pretentious if you have an umbrella in Southern California? I don't know. Oh, but this is something that I've really been thinking about lately, and that's that I really wonder when people will start to dislike Google. Yeah, a nod, that's cool. And, cause like, I feel like it has to come soon. It's really weird that it hasn't come yet, like that no one, I mean, obviously people have complaints, but no, they really don't. Like, they seem completely satisfied with it, and I'm completely satisfied with it. It's awesome, but like,
we think Google is everything. And like it's the only like corporation company that I feel like people aren't critical of. Maybe that's too much of a general statement, but like the point is like there's like reps on this campus that they're gonna walk around and like if you're using Google Chrome as your browser rather than Netscape or Safari, or there are many more, Mozilla Firefox, they're gonna like reward you and like give you like food or like money or something. And like if we got an email from like if like society got an email from Hershey's that was like, hey, like we have some representatives roaming around the metropolitan area of Los Angeles, and if we see you eating a Hershey's bar, then if we see you eating a Hershey's bar, then we're gonna reward you. People would know that that's the silliest thing in the whole world, and like it's just a product. And no one would like, people would be far more critical of it than if they were like, use Google Chrome. But it's just a product, and we like have idealized it, which is fine. One last thought, well maybe not last, but one more thing, is that I find it really interesting. Actually, I'm not going to share it. I think I'm good. Sure. I feel good, yeah.
Thank you so much. We have about 45 minutes left in tonight's Diction for Dollars, and then we'll be taking a short break and going into the guided meditation marathon. It was great to hear we've had several talks about mindfulness and meditation and Zen, and so tonight's, if you're able to stick around, tonight's service will be should be an extension of that. But let's go ahead and try and get some more dollars into the circulation. So Erwynnda, are you? Okay, super. So next up, we're going to have one of our return favorite guests, Erwynnda Vessup, and she's going to be doing Jabez. Welcome.
Thank you, Gustavo.
And are you all right putting, like, we unfortunately won't stay, so you might have to put it on the edge.
No.
Are you?
I'm good.
Just be very careful.
Okay.
I would maybe do like
here?
angle, like, no, maybe
This one? Okay, cool. Yes.
Just keep an eye on it. Don't.
So good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Erwynnda, and before I give my little talk, I'm going to be singing along. So enjoy. Oh, he's done for me. It's so amazing. The love he has for me, I could not explain. I could not explain. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. And I know he will do for you what he's done for me. What has done for me? It's so amazing, yeah. What is done? I could never explain it, no, no. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I know he will do for you what he's done for me. Amazing love. 'Cause the love is amazing, it's so amazing. Amazing love. Amazing love, pure love. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. And I know he will do it for you, what he's done for me. Amazing love. His love is pure. His love is unconditional. Yeah. Amazing love. It's amazing. Truly amazing. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. I know what he's done for me, for me, for me, for me, for me. I know he'll do for you what he's done for me. Yeah. I know he will do for you what he's done for me. Oh, Thank you. Thank you. Now, I preface my talk with that song because that is such a precious song. And when I first heard it, it was like, it spoke to my soul. It was like tears of joy, like, wow, this is real. This is so beautiful. I totally relate to this. So I sung that song, my gift to you. So my talk is about a little man named Jabez. Gimper type of man. So I'll read it. A Gimper. As Sayun explained it, he was someone who is always doing a little more than what is expected. Just a little more. Some people, they don't go the distance, but this man, he went the distance. In the furniture business, for example, gimping is putting the finishing touches on the upholstery, patiently applying the ornamental extras that are a mark of quality and of value. Dr. Seyun took as his text the briefest of Bible biographies. Now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers. 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9. Jabez wanted to be more, and he wanted to do more for God. And as we discovered by the end of the story, God granted him his request. The end of the verse, the end of the Bible story, it says, Lord, I think I want to be like Gimper. For you, I pray, as I look out the window at the spring rain. So maybe it's just the raindrops running down the window panes, but suddenly my thoughts ran past verse 9. Picked up my Bible, and I read verse 10, the prayer of Jabez. Something in his prayer would explain the mystery. Pulling a chair up to the yellow counter, I bent over my Bible, and reading the prayer over and over, I searched with all of my heart for the future God had for someone as ordinary as I. The next morning, I prayed the Jabez prayer, and the next, and the next, and the next. 30 years later, I haven't stopped praying that prayer. If you were to ask me, says the writer, what sentence other than my prayer for salvation has revolutionized my life and ministry the most, I would tell you that it was just the cry of a prayer, a Gimper prayer named Jabez, who is still remembered not for what he did, but what he said, by what he prayed, and for what happened next. In the pages of this little book, I want to introduce you to the amazing truth in Jabez's prayer for the blessing and prepare you to expect God's astounding answers to it as a regular part of your life experience. How do I know that it will significantly impact you? Because of my experiences and the testimony of hundreds of others around the world with whom I've shared these principles. Because even more importantly, the Jabez prayer, it is one of God's powerful will for your future. So finally, because it reveals that the Father longs to give you so much more than you may have ever thought or ever asked for. Just ask the man who had no future, Jabez. Someone once said, there is really very little difference between people, but that little difference makes a huge difference. Jabez doesn't stand astride the Old Testament like a Moses or a David, or light up the book of Acts like those early Christians who turned the world upside down. But one thing is sure, the little difference that he made, it made all the difference. You could think of him as a prodigy of the genealogy, or maybe the Bible's little big man. You'll find him hiding in the least read section of one of the least read books of the Bible, the first 9 chapters. The first 9 chapters of 1 Chronicles are taken up with the officially family tree of the Hebrew tribes, beginning with Adam and proceeding through thousands of years to Israel's return from captivity. Talk about boring. The long list of unfamiliar and difficult names, more than 500 of them, are likely to make even the bravest Bible student turn back. Take chapter 4, for example. Ahumai, Ishmael, Idbash, Hazelpani, Anab. I'd forgive you if you suddenly consider putting this little book down and learning from a TV, but stay with me, because 44 names into the chapter, a little story suddenly breaks out. It goes like this. Now Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, and his mother called his name Jabez, saying, because I bore him in pain. And Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, oh, that you would bless me indeed, and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil, that I may not cause pain So God granted him what he requested. In the next verse, the roll call for the tribe of Judah picks up as if nothing even happened. Shelub, Shilab, Mehir. Something about this man's name, Jabez, had caused a historian to pause in the middle, clear his throat, and switch tactics. Wait a minute. He seems to interject. You just got to know something about this guy named Jabez. He stands head and shoulders above the rest. So what? What is his secret? What is the secret to the enduring reputation of Jabez? You can search from front to back in your Bible, as I have, and you won't find any more information than we have in these 2 brief verses. Things started badly for a person no one ever heard of. He prayed an unusual one-sentence prayer. Things ended extraordinarily well. Clearly, the outcome can be traced to his prayer. Something about Jabez's simple, direct request to God changed his life and left a permanent mark on the history books of Israel. Oh, that you would bless me indeed, and enlarge my territory, that your hand would be with me, and that you would keep me from evil. At first glance, the 4 requests may strike you as sincere, sensible, even noble, but not terribly remarkable. Just under the surface of each lies a giant paradigm breaker that runs exactly opposite to the way you and I usually think. In the pages to come, I want to show you just how dramatically each of Jabez's requests can release something miraculous in your life. So, does anyone out here this evening want to live an extraordinary life? Let me see your hand. I know I do. We're seen like this, right? Yes. So, when was the last time God worked through you in such a way that you knew beyond doubt that God had done it? In fact, when was the last time you saw a miracle happen on a regular basis in your life? If you're like most believers I've met, you wouldn't know how to ask for that kind of experience, or even if you should. What I have to share with you has been opening up lives to God's mighty working for many years. Recently, I was in Dallas to teach on the Jabez blessing to an audience of 9,000. Later, over lunch, a man said to me, "Bruce, I heard you preach the message of Jabez 15 years ago, and I haven't stopped praying it. The change has been so overwhelming, I have just never stopped." Across the table, another friend agreed. He said he'd been praying Jabez's little prayer for 10 years with similar results. The man next to him, a heart surgeon from Indianapolis, said he had been praying the prayer for 5 years. I told them, "Friends, I've been praying Jabez for more than half my life. Because you're reading this book, I believe you share my desire to reach for a life that will be more honorable for God. Not that you wish for others to reach for less, but for you, nothing but God's fullest blessing will do. When you stand before him to give account, your deepest longing is to hear, 'Well done.'" God really does have unclaimed blessings waiting for you, my friend. I know it sounds impossible, even embarrassingly suspicious in our self-serving day, yet that very exchange, your want for God's plenty, has been his loving will for your life from eternity past. And with a handful of core commitments on your part, you can proceed from this day forward with the confidence and the expectation that your Heavenly Father, your and my Heavenly Father, will bring it to pass for you. Think of it this way. Instead of standing near the river's edge, asking for a cup of water to get you through each day, you'll do something unthinkable. You will take a little prayer with a giant prize and jump into the river. At that moment, you will begin to let the loving currents of God's grace and power carry you along. God's great plan for you will surround you and sweep you forward into the profoundly important and satisfying life He has for you. Is this what you want? So, why not ask? You're at a spiritual retreat in the mountains with others who want to experience a fuller Christian life. Okay? For the duration of the retreat, everyone has been matched with a mentor. Yours is in his 70s, and he's been touching lives for God longer than you've been alive. On the way to the shower the first morning, you walk past his room, his door is ajar, and he has just knelt down to pray, you see. You can't resist. How exactly does a giant of a faith begin his prayers? You wonder. You pause and you lean a little closer. Will he pray for a revival? Will he pray for hungry people to be fed all over the world? Oh Lord, I beg you, first and most this morning, please bless me. Startled at such a selfish prayer, you pad down the hall to your shower. But as you're adjusting the water temperature that is, a thought hits you. It's so obvious. You can't believe you haven't heard or even thought of it before. Great men of the faith think differently than the rest of us. By the time you're dressed and heading for breakfast, you're sure of it. The reason some men and women of faith rise above the rest, you decide, is that they think and they pray differently than those around them. Is it possible that God wants you to be selfish in your prayers? To ask for more and more again from your Lord? I've met with so many earnest Christians who take it as a sign of immaturity to think such thoughts. They assume they'll seem impolite or greedy if they ask God for too many blessings. Maybe you think like that. And that is the conclusion for now. I'll continue later. I saw a red sign. Thank you so much. Oh, yes. Oh, I have a minute and a half. Okay, so blessing is not about sneezing. Achoo. That was a fake one. Before we can ask for God's blessing with confidence, we need a clear understanding of what the word means. We hear bless or blessing intoned from every pulpit. We ask God to bless the missionaries, bless the kids, bless the food on our table, if some of us remember to pray before we're about to eat. It's something Grandma says when she hears you sneeze. God bless you. No wonder the meaning of blessing gets watered down to something vague and innocuous like, have a nice day. No wonder so many Christians aren't as desperate as Jabez was to receive it. To bless in the biblical sense means to ask for or to impart supernatural favor. When we ask for God's blessing, we're not asking for more of what we could get for ourselves. We're crying out for the wonderful, unlimited goodness that only God has the power to know about or to give us. This kind of richness is what the writer was referring to in Proverbs. The Lord's blessing is our greatest wealth. All our works adds nothing to it. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 22. Notice a radical aspect of Jabez's request for blessing. He left it entirely up to God. He left it entirely up to God to decide what the blessing would be, where, when, and how.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Another fabulous retreat. Thank you so much. we've got about just a little over 20 minutes left. Oh, Erwynnda, are these your glasses? Yeah. Okay, let's not forget. Thank you so much for being here. Diction for Dollars. Let's see, we have one more person written down. If they go for 20 minutes, that may be the last person, but if they finish up, we may have time for a couple more folks, so let's see what happens. A reminder, this is Diction for Dollars. People here get paid $1 a minute to speak, and you can speak up to 20 minutes. This is the second to last Diction for Dollars. There will not be another. Usually, so far we've been having 2 sessions per event, but tonight's ends at 7:30 because the guided meditation marathon that starts at 8 will last until 11. So hopefully you'll be able to stick around for that. We've got a bunch of really amazing experimental writers and artists here to do these meditations tonight. We will have one more Diction for Dollars as part of the Bureau of Experimental Speech and Holy Theses, and that will be a week from today, next Thursday, December 6th. And that will also be a half session from 5 to 7:30. One thing folks should know, a couple things folks should know. Anybody who participates, who comes up to this lectern, is invited to come and earn their TMFA, their Toastmasters of Fine Arts, next week. We'll be having some champagne and some totes and some certificates for you, so that you can, maybe, we hope that you'll be able to get some, little push forward in your life in certain ways. So. Please come on back, and the ceremony will start around 8 o'clock for that. There will also be some nudity that night, not on your part, but on the part of a performer who will be here. And so that's another exciting reason to maybe come back as well. But let's go ahead. We've got 20 more minutes, 20 more dollars. Is Nissa here? Nissa Gustafson will be presenting Storytime.
Okay, so when asked for a title for my speaking, I guess, I said Storytime, mostly because what comes to mind when speaking in front of groups of people to me is automatically this kind of sharing of stories, or making up stories, or telling stories, something that I've done for a while. I should preface the rest of what I'm going to say by this little story, I guess. When I was younger, like 4 or 5 years old, I told a lot of stories, but most of my friends and many of my relatives took them to be fact because I never really announced them as imaginative workings or whatever. It was just something that I was recounting. And therefore, I had a couple of friends when I was pretty little that, as we grew older, told me repeatedly, "Man, you were such a liar when you were a little kid." I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You just told these super tall tales about all these things, like, what were you talking about?" And I was like, I was blown away because I never knew that people took what I said as blank truth. I mean, in my mind it wasn't, so therefore, why would everybody else assume it to be true? And that said, all the stories that I'm going to say are huge exaggerations. They didn't actually happen. That's not true. They're all true. Yeah, work those words out in your mind. But, so the first, I guess, so last weekend was Thanksgiving break, so I'll tell a story about Thanksgiving break last year. Seems appropriate. This is my second year here at Pomona. Last year, I was a freshman, and I was really excited about being in California. I'm from New York, so the West Coast is big and exciting and new, and there are lots of big mountains and crazy coastlines, and I don't know, it's geologically speaking, it's much newer land than the East Coast, so everything looks very dramatic to me. But so last year, Thanksgiving break, I went with a group of friends up the coast a little ways to Big Sur, beautiful cliffs, and we had plans to go hiking to these hot springs and spend Thanksgiving being very thankful for being warm in hot springs and nature and all such things. And we drove up in a car that we'd rented from the school. There were 5 of us, yeah, and we got there pretty late at night. It was already dark, and we just camped out. And in the morning, it was a little bit rainy and foggy, and we decided instead of starting our hike into the hot springs, which is about 14 miles, I think, we were going to go down to the beach first and just wander around in the rocks and play in the swells and wake up a little bit. So we went down to Pfeiffer Beach. I don't know if any of you know where that is, but it's along the coast in Bicz somewhere. And it was really beautiful, down this windy dirt gravel road, about 1.5 miles. And we're wandering around the beach, enjoying ourselves, playing on the rocks. And one of my friends had the car keys in his pocket, and we're standing over these tidal pools, just looking at all the beautiful things to see. And then we hear this little shout, like, oh! Like, what happened? Did anybody fall? Is everybody okay? The keys had fallen out of his pocket into the tidal pool, so we scrambled down to the tidal pool to try and get the keys. And a big wave comes in and washes them out to the ocean. So here we are, Pfeiffer Beach, maybe 1.5 miles away from the main road, without our car keys. Not our car keys, the school's car keys. And yeah, we were, I mean, it was kind of like, oh shit moment, like what do we do? And there was no service down there because, I don't know, we're in the middle of nowhere. So a bunch of us walk up to the main road, to the post office, which is not that far away once we got back on the main road, and try and figure out what to do. So we called the school, and the school said, well, we can send you the spare set of keys, but it's not going to be up there to the post office in Bicz until Monday. So a couple of us had to be back by Monday for various school-related things. So we decided to split up into 2 groups. One group would stay there and continue on the planned hike and wait for the keys to arrive, and the second group would somehow make our way back to Pomona College. And I was part of that second group. So what we did that afternoon, we walked up. It was midday. It wasn't too late. It was probably a little before noon. And we walked up to the main road, made up a little sign, said, heading to LA. And stuck out our thumbs, and it was 3 of us, and surprisingly, within the first 5 minutes, this really fancy convertible pulls over, and this super friendly man steps out and says, where are you guys headed? We're like, we're going to LA. He's like, all right, hop on in. And super serendipitously, he was this very wealthy Chinese oil executive from Houston who was on his Thanksgiving break wandering around the West Coast, and very graciously drove us straight to Union Station, and we were home like by dark. It was great. It was wonderful. He took us out to dinner at a Chinese restaurant and everything. It was so Thanksgiving. It was we were thankful. It was great. Yeah, and this year it was a good Thanksgiving break. Not quite as eventful, but stayed around here, and it was lovely. Sweet potatoes. No turkey, I'm a vegetarian, but it was still really nice. Yeah, so there's that story for you. What else? So, I guess, actually, maybe I'll read a poem. Let my stories ruminate. Not very recently, last spring, I began writing poetry for the first time in a long time. I hadn't really written anything of I don't know, I'm kind of scared of creative work in a way. I don't know if it's a fear that maybe I won't think that I'm quite good enough, or it's totally a self-conscious thing, but like, I don't know, I've been doing it recently, so we'll see. Yeah, let me write. This one is called Nocturnal Navel. Up yours, and we link in a blink's embrace, and hold faster to the sound of swings. Melodrama is my forte. You don't have one, or I would mention it here. Together, we might just be the best 2 of the 9 cats who sit on this stoop. Yeah. And this one is kind of reminiscent of home in a way. It's called Coney. Do you remember when we took the train from Manhattan to the coast? Me standing on one leg, you singing classic rock. We rode the Ferris wheel with sweat under our fingernails. Thinking back, that was maybe the cause of your fear of reaching for my hand. Then we walked through the sand and bought bananas that would never be eaten, but rather lay smashed and bruised in my backpack for days after you left. Or was it me who left? I pretended to sleep on the bus ride home because I was afraid to ruin a near-perfect day with small talk and stupid questions. And then you woke me up from a fake dream and offered your hand to help me stand. We walked outside and suddenly it was dark, which maybe made you brave because you touched my chin and gave me a kiss and said goodbye, and then you left. Or maybe I left. But that doesn't really matter now. Yeah, I guess another story which maybe will shed a little light on the idea of me telling stories when I was younger. I think this was in elementary school sometime, in maybe 4th grade. And a group of friends and I, we had become infatuated with the supernatural. During recess, we would go into the library sometimes and just like check out all those like weird UFO phenomena books and the ghost stories and like all these really spooky tales and just read them and love them and pore over the pages. And we decided that we should make up our own ghost story for our school, like make a ghost club and like spread it around and maybe make it exclusive because we were in 4th grade and like wanted to create an exclusive club. So one of the next, I don't know how long after that, maybe a couple of days later during recess, we started spreading around this tale of this ghost who was haunting our school. He had been a little boy who had gone to our school. I don't remember the name that we made up. We can say like Johnny or something. There's this nature walk right behind the kickball field, grass field where kids played kickball, and we went on the nature walk and we pointed down the cliff on the one side of the nature walk, and there's like a bike wheel at the bottom. Someone had like tossed their bike off long ago, and there's this rusted bike wheel at the bottom, and we said, that's where poor Johnny, that's where poor Johnny, he was in a wheelchair and he fell off the cliff and he died and now he's haunting our school. It's kind of a boring and like generic ghost story, but some people, like, it caught on real quick, like wildfire, and everybody loved it, or like at least believed it. And we told stories about how sometimes you could hear the rattling in the air vents in the gymnasium, and that was him, that was his ghost. And you can look in the clouds sometimes and see these weird figures that look like skulls and crossbones, or I don't know, ominous things. And that was his ghost. And I don't know, we felt very powerful. We had created this rumor, this thing. But then, another thing, I was also kind of a teacher's pet and like a bit of like a goody two-shoes in elementary school. So I cared a lot about like what my teachers thought about me. One of my best friends, who we had told the ghost story to, she was a scaredy cat, and she went home and was having terrible nightmares. And crying to her mom about how there was this ghost in our school and how I had told her that like he was haunting the hallways, and now she was so afraid that he was going to come home with her and haunt her house. And her mom was like really concerned and really worried and kind of upset, and came to the school sometime during the week and kind of told the teacher, listen, Nissa's been telling my daughter these stories about this ghost. Yeah, it's not okay. And so then one day after recess, I got approached by my 4th grade teacher, who I thought was wonderful, and I wanted to think I was wonderful. And she told me, listen, I know you started this rumor about this ghost, you started this ghost story. It's really not okay, you can't do that. People are getting scared. Next, that's probably not how she phrased it, but basically, I just started bawling because I just thought she was so disappointed in me, even though she wasn't really. She was just saying, stop, quit it with the ghost stories. But I took it really harshly. And yeah, I mean, I remember it very clearly, which obviously means it was maybe a formative experience. But looking back, like, it wasn't that big of a deal. She liked me. I liked her. It was 4th grade. It was all good. Yeah, so that's another story. I'm noticing up here on this podium that there's fur on the inside, which I think is such a lovely touch. It's really great. And as actually, the decorations in this room in general, I'm curious about the alligator, because I noticed there's an alligator on that yellow sign back there, in the corner over there. I don't know, I like it a lot. And this background, like the molecules and another alligator, it's curious to me, I like it. And all of the words, I can almost picture these little cartoon word bubbles coming out. Don't worry, you look marvelous. And it makes me feel better. Yeah. I don't know. That might be, actually, okay, yeah. Maybe one of the things that contributed to my imaginative musings as a child, until the middle of 1st grade, I went to a kind of alternative preschool, elementary school. I went to a Waldorf school. It was called Mountain Laurel, and I don't know if anyone knows what Waldorf education is, but it's like, yeah, Wes does, but it's like Rudolf Steiner philosophy, a lot of creativity, a lot of imaginative teaching methods, and I know a lot of them are different, but at my particular Waldorf school, Mountain Laurel, there's a really heavy emphasis on fairies and gnomes and mystical creatures, and it was probably like, if I had a religion as a child, which I didn't because my parents weren't very religious at all, still aren't, but the fairies and gnomes were my deities. Still are, probably, but I don't know, I'm less eager to stand up for those beliefs with such strength as I was back then. But probably until about 8th grade, like if someone told me that fairies weren't real, it was like a big deal. But yeah, I'm accepting of the idea that some people don't believe in fairies now. Yeah, and with that, I think I'll wrap up. Thank you.
We've got basically like 3.5 minutes left. Is there? We have one person signed up. Jake, would you be able to do something in 3 minutes? Sure. All right, come on up. This is Jake Swanson. He's going to do the gospel. What is it? The gospel hand. Let's hear it for Jake.
All right. Basically, this is a tool that we use in the call ministry at our church. And it's for sharing and telling people about Jesus. For us, our church is a Christian church. It really is non-dominant. I'm sorry. It's not necessarily a Christian church. It just, you really have to believe in Jesus, to fit in. So with this ministry, we kind of use this as one of the tools to just help us speak to people and help us to get the conversation going. So usually we start off with this question, and I like if you guys would just answer this in your hearts. Do you guys know for certain that if you were to die today, that you would go to heaven? Now I know for certain that I'm going to heaven, but that's only because the Bible says, "For these things I have written, that you may know you have eternal life." Now the Bible also warns us that there's a specific path we must follow. It says, enter through the narrow gate, through it is difficult, and few find it. But what I'm going to share with you today is how I know for certain that I have eternal life. Basically, heaven is a free gift. It says in the Bible, for the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. Another thing about heaven is it cannot be earned or deserved. It also says, for by grace you have been saved, through faith. It is the gift of God, lest any man should boast. Now the reason that heaven has to be a free gift is because man is a sinner. It says in the Bible, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Now, also, we can't save ourselves from our sin. It says also in the Bible that be perfect like your heavenly Father in heaven is perfect. It doesn't say save yourself like your heavenly Father has saved himself. It says you must be perfect in your heaven. And that's where we fall short. Now, on the other hand of the story, there's God. And first of all, God is merciful. It says in the Bible, God is love. But it also says that God is just. And it says by no means will he clear the guilty. So imagine if I was a bank robber. Now, I'm not really a bank robber. I just use this because I'm in a tough situation. So I grab a mask and I grab a gun and I go up to the bank and I get the money. But I just barely make it out before the cops catch me and they bring me before a judge. And I make my plea before the judge and I say, you know, look, I didn't really mean to do that. You know, I'm a good person. And I gave the money back. I didn't hurt anybody. What do you say you let me go? Now, just think about this. What would the judge say if he was a just judge? He couldn't let me go, right? I mean, he has to uphold the law, and I made a choice. In the same way, if the judge was my very own father, if it was a small town and he was the only judge available, and I said, look, Dad, I know I made a mistake, but can you let me go? My own dad would very much want to let me go, but he would have to treat me just like everybody else. And that is our problem, but there is hope in Jesus today. So I pray that you guys would find that. Thank you very much. Sure. Well, I didn't come out of it. Okay. And with that, we end this week's edition of Addiction for Dollars, but I hope you'll stick around. We'll have another Diction for Dollars next week, same time, 5 to 7:30. But in a little bit, in about 30 minutes' time, starting at 8, we're going to have a guided meditation marathon. It's sponsored by both the Experimental Meditation Center of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Meditation Ghostwriters Guild. So please stick around. We've got a bunch of really wonderful artists. If you've got some time to spare, we've got food and some drink outside. Plus, our 4th issue of the BESHT Weekly is hot off the presses, sitting over there with all other issues. There's lots of information about our alligators and whatnot in issue 1, if people are interested in finding out more about why John Cage was really angry and called everybody alligators. Also, for those of you who have participated in tonight or in past editions of Diction for Dollars or whatnot, we're going to be hosting a Toastmasters of Fine Arts certificate ceremony next week, starting at 8 p.m. So if you're interested in graduating or getting a professional certificate, come on by. And then also, if the space, that will be our final event on December 6th, but in fact, this space will continue to be open during gallery hours until December 16th, and during gallery hours, 12 to 5 p.m., almost every day, 6 days a week. It is an open mic, and so folks are welcome to come and use the space. You can come on your own or with a group. You don't need to be Pomona affiliated. You can be part of the community.
And so you can either come and show up and use it, or you can also contact us. I gave out a bunch of cards. There's an email address. If you'd like to reserve the space for your group during our gallery hours, you're more than welcome to. So, but anyways, I hope you'll stick around, grab a little refreshment, and come back in about 30 minutes. Thanks.